Number 5, Top Gun Maverick, starring Tom Cruise.
Your number 5 is Top Gun Maverick. Why is that, R&B?
Well, first of all, you talk about escapism. You know, it feels. My whole thing about movies is I love films that have authorship behind them, and what I mean is that directors are in synergy, the actors, and they succeed in bringing an audience what they set out to bring the audience. This was a movie that I thought, from that perspective, succeeded on every level. It had, again, a basic, easy to understand story. You know, basically an old dog. Who would have thought Tom Cruise would one day be the old dog who's about to be put out to pasture? You know, his idea of a fighter pilot. Who would have thought fighter pilots are a thing of the past? But with drone warfare, you don't need them, or so we think. And you know, here he in the opening scene, he disobeys orders like Chuck Yeager, the days of yore. You know, and basically steals his brand new plane because he wants to extend the program. Goes past Mach 10, and immediately I was just I was in this movie. I was complete. You know, Ed Harris. Whenever Ed Harris shows up, I'm in too. You know, as the admiral, and I was going to shut the program down. And this could have been, you know, a retread of Top Gun, but it actually, I thought that it had the passing of the torch elements and the keeping your place, being relevant still in the world. And then I really liked all the new characters. I liked the very chaste romance. I mean, I would have liked to have seen Jennifer Connelly. You know, obviously she's beautiful, but I liked the fact they didn't, you know, there was a nice romantic scene between the two of them. You felt real
Very
emotion.
PG.
Yeah, it's very PG, very PG.
Yeah, and the daughter shows up and you got to hide from him, like sneaking out like the teenage.
I mean,
yeah, that was great.
All of it. And then the scene, I have to say, I was absolutely emotionally moved by the scene with Val Kilmer.
Oof.
I didn't expect that,
Yeah.
you know, and it was the fact that even though, you know, they incorporated his actual physical ailment and the fact that cancer basically took his vocal cords, they put that in the movie, which they didn't have to, but they did, and they made it work. And then ultimately, the aerial photography was like nothing I'd ever seen before, and I had a smile on my face the entire time watching this movie, and to the point where they didn't even identify who the villains were.
Right.
You know, which I thought was actually a bold choice. Like, you know, they could have said it was the North Koreans, they could have said it was the Iranians, they could have said it was the Chinese, they could have said it was any number of people, but they didn't. And it didn't really matter.
And they can sell the movie to all those countries.
And they can sell the movie to all those countries. And I'm
That's
sure they
great.
figured, like, well, what's going to happen? Because Chris McQuarrie was a producer and writer on this. He's like, let's just make it the Death Star trench run. And instead of the target being 2 meters, we'll make it 3 meters. You know, and they gave us an incredible action scene, which almost bordered on the absurd. You know, they're shot down behind enemy lines. And what do they steal? An F-14 Tomcat. And I, as a kid, even before Top Gun, I built many models of the F-14 because the wings would work. I built 1/72nd scale, 1/48 scale, 1/32nd scale. I love the F-14, and I knew it was going to be in the movie somewhere. But when they see it, I got to tell you, I felt like I was 8 years old. I felt like somebody made a movie just for me, and I mean, a grand, rousing entertainment, free of ideology, you know, free of it was just, here are these students, and you know, they put as much emotion in it as they could. Just a great time at the movies. And by the way,
Number 4, Decision to Leave.
Okay, let's just pause it right there. Number 4, Decision to Leave. Where is this from, Robert?
it's Korean, and it comes from Park Chan-wook. And he made films like you might know his English language movies like Stoker, but he's an incredible Korean filmmaker he's made a lot of twisted films. He made part of I think it's an anthology film called 3 Extreme, and he made the Dumplings episode of that. If you haven't seen that, please do. If you like twisted things. But this is a really fascinating. He also made The Handmaiden, another Korean film that came out a few years ago that I loved. But this is the story of a detective who is trying to solve a murder, and he ends up getting involved with the murdered man's wife. And it is a fascinating film. Now, it's unbelievably beautiful, and the relationship in the movie is, I found this movie very compelling. I don't think the ending entirely works, where it goes entirely works, but the journey there was so captivating to me. And I, as a filmmaker, Park Chan-wook is one of the best. He's one of my favorite directors working today. A lot of those directors are Asian. Wong Kar-wai, Park Chan-wook.
Yes.
I'm a huge fan. And it's interesting. I think that as a film fan, one of the great things that's happened over the last 20 years is the rise of Korean cinema. Obviously, Parasite is a perfect example of that. But even before that, the psychological thrillers, the horror movies like I Saw the Devil. There's some really interesting, I mean, obviously Squid Game came out of Korea. There's some really interesting things. I mean, the same country that gives us BTS and Blackpink can turn around and give us, movies like this. And it's really incredible stuff. And the society, I was lucky to go, I was in Korea shooting a documentary in 2018. And I had never been there before. And it is a country of contradictions, and I really love it. And this film is a knockout. It's long. It's not for everybody, but I think it's definitely worth your time.
That's great.
All right. Well, let's continue. Yes, it's on my list to watch. Until you sent it to me, I had not heard about this at all. But
Well, I was introduced to Korean cinema at last this year when I went to visit my sister, and she played Train to Busan for me, the zombie.
Oh,
yeah.
I was like, this is the best zombie movie I've ever seen.
It's so true. It's funny you say that. I just got the 4K disc of it this week. I love Train to Busan. If you guys haven't seen that movie, Train to Busan, whether you don't say, "Oh, I'm over zombie movies," you gotta watch it.
I'm never over zombies.
It's so great. It's so great.
Rosa, have you seen any of these films?
I've not seen Decision to Leave yet. I have seen Train to Busan. I absolutely love it.
Yeah, it's so
So
good.
yeah, I concur.
All right, let's see your number 3.
Number 3, Glass Onion.
Oh, okay.
Ooh. Talk about controversial pick, my friend.
Well,
What's the
here's the thing.
controversial director?
I wasn't necessarily going to include this, but here's the thing. Like Top Gun Maverick, to me, this is, I mean, I know even mentioning the words Ryan Johnson in a sentence leaves you open to, all kinds of horrors. But, excuse me, I have to say, I'm a huge fan of Ryan Johnson's. His first movie, Brick, which was this noir movie set in a high school, I loved it. And I loved episodes of Breaking Bad that he directed. And what I really loved about Knives Out and now this film is it felt like old school, like when I was growing up watching Death on the Nile, not the Kenneth Branagh version, but the older versions from the 70s. I miss adult mystery. Like I miss legal thrillers. I miss movies like Glass Onion. I miss that. And first of all, our man Ryan Johnson got paid a lot of money to make 2 more Benoit Blanc movies with Daniel Craig. But to me, this was a return to form. It was an entertaining movie. It's a sequel that I thought in some ways surpassed the original. But I loved watching all of these actors just tear it up. They were having a blast making this movie. And again, I could go, there's a lot of other great indie movies that are not on my list, but I picked this because I miss this kind of rousing entertainment. And it was nice to see Ryan Johnson created a brand new franchise. It's an original franchise. He wrote and directed these movies. And I miss, again, going back to the authorship of it all. I mean, is this movie going to change the world? No. Does it deal with social issues? No. But it was what movies are, which is a rousing entertainment. And I didn't have as much fun as I did with Top Gun Maverick, but I had a lot of fun watching this movie. And that, to me, sometimes that's enough.
I'm a fan of Knives. Was it Knives Out?
Knives Out.
I love that film. And
I
it
did too.
introduced us to Ana de Armas. I mean,
A
I
dressed
wasn't a
down,
fan of-
frumpy
I-
version of her.
I'm
Which is
definitely
hard
not
to
a
do.
fan of his Star Wars film, but obviously he's talented in other areas. So I'm glad you enjoyed it. I'll probably check it out now. I'll probably check
Yeah,
it out.
if you guys haven't seen his first feature, Brick, that stars Joseph Gordon-Levitt, it's really, really fascinating because it's a noir. It's as if it's a murder mystery, even though it's happening in a high school, and everybody talks like they're in a 40s. It's really fun. I loved it.
Number 2, Avatar: The Way of Water.
Wow, way up there.
And Robert Meyer Burnett's number 1 movie of 2022, number 1, Everything, Everywhere, All at Once.
There it is. 2 Avatar, 1 Everything Everywhere All at Once. R&B, take it away.
Well, first of all, look, I mean, I honestly believe that James Cameron, whether you love the Avatar movies or not, and I'm still waiting, other than people saying the exact same thing they've been saying for 13 years, it's Dances with Wolves, it's Fern Gully in space, whatever. That might be true, but West Side Story is Romeo and Juliet. So I'm like, to me, James Cameron is doing nothing less than trying to save the planet. And he's doing so by he goes down to the bottom of the Mariana Trench. He knows what's happening to our planet. But politically, nobody wants to hear, there's nothing worse than listening to an environmentalist bang on about the planet and what we should do. So what James Cameron is doing is he's making a series of films, grand pop entertainments that are easily understood, that are incredibly entertaining to watch. But he's hoping that this is his legacy, that he wants the planet, he wants people to watch these movies, love the hell out of them, but also understand maybe causing people's consciousness, even in passing. If he tells people, we have to save the whales, people are like, yeah, whatever. But if you do it in such a way that he does in Avatar: The Way of Water, some 10-year-old kid might be affected by this movie and grows up to have a different perspective and understand that we live in a closed biological system. When you litter or we dump arsenic in the groundwater or whatever, it's raining microplastics in New Zealand now. There's a reason why this is happening, and it isn't natural. And hopefully through these movies, maybe he's hoping to raise the consciousness of the planet. It's what he does. He's been pushing the R&D for the Hollywood, for the world film industry, all the way back to things like in The Abyss. The pseudopod sequence led to the T-1000, which led ILM to create the programming that Spielberg could use to create dinosaurs. And the 3D, the underwater motion capture in this film is astonishing. And anyone who's ever scuba dived in tropical waters, you're watching this and it is indistinguishable from reality. And it's insane. And I had a blast watching this movie. Again, it's a huge pop entertainment, and I loved everything about this. And yes, are there elements of stories you've seen before? Absolutely. But this is a heady, frothy mix of, this is like the greatest pizza you've ever had. And sitting in a theater, watching this film I'll tell you what happened to me when I watched this movie.
Yeah.
I'm leaving the theater, and there's a man, we're different kinds of people, you could tell, different ethnicities. And he's standing in front of the screen, just looking at the empty screen. The credits were over, the lights had come up, and he's just staring at the screen. And I didn't really notice him. And I'm talking to my girlfriend, and I'm like, that was insane. Can you believe that? And he turns to me and he goes, right? That was insane. I can't believe what I just saw. And we walked out together, and his 2 boys were with him, and his wife was with them, and like his brother was there. And we all were in the lobby. I don't even know these people. And we're going over the movie, like, what is this scene? And when it was raining, it was like I was brushing the water away, and there's no water there because it's 3D. I mean, and here we're a bunch of strangers bonding over how much sheer joy that we experienced watching this movie in IMAX 3D. No one was
Yeah.
going, well, that movie was woke or this. No, it was a bunch of people that went to see a grand entertainment in a theater, and complete strangers. I've always loved the fact that in movies, you have a bunch of people of different people from all around, all walks of life, all different ethnicities, sexualities, economic backgrounds. We all go into the same room together with smiles on our faces, and the lights go down. Hopefully you put your phone away and you're not talking. And we
Yes.
all get to experience a story together. And movies, the best movies, work for everybody. That's what the power of storytelling is. And I had just as well, maybe not as much fun, but bonding in that theater with a family that I didn't know.
Yeah.
That seeing multi-generations of this family all jazzed about what they'd seen.
And yet,
it transported them away.
And yet, that is not your number one movie. You're
It's
talking
not my
about your
number
number
one
two movie of the year. Your number one movie is Everything Everywhere All at Once.
Okay, this Everything Everywhere All at Once, I was knocked out by the sheer creative audacity of this movie. You know, we had another multiverse movie, The Multiverse of Madness. And while I quite enjoyed that, I mean, I like the Marvel movies, this film is the multiverse movie of the year. And directed by the Daniels, I had no idea what to expect when I went into this movie. I don't think I'd seen it. Maybe I know I had seen a trailer for it. I just was knocked out. This movie was not hugely expensive. And it literally rested on Michelle Yeoh, Jamie Lee Curtis, and Ke Huy Quan coming back after, being gone for a long time. And I was just, I mean, it was different than Avatar, but I thought this movie was so wildly creative, and it made such good use of its performers, allowing them to seeing them in all the different guises they were in, depending on what universe was happening around them. I just adored this movie. I was like, to me, I grew up watching, I used to love going to see lower budget movies. Like I never judged movies based on their budgets, but Hollywood cannot make low budget movies anymore. Their business model won't allow it. They can't do that.
Interesting.
Unless it's a horror film.
Yeah. Well, horror is the only genre. But even then, you'd think that the studios would have their own divisions. But they acquire indie movies. Look at Smile.
Yeah.
Smile, one of the great success stories of the year. $200 million worldwide gross on a $17 million spend before marketing. I mean, that's extraordinary.
Wow.
That's extraordinary. But this movie was the same kind of thing. I mean, it shows that you can make great, creative, world-class cinema and not have to spend $100 million to do it. And I think that this movie was a testament to the creativity and power of cinema. And when people are allowed, I mean, to me, it should have been a studio movie. And it became A24's most successful film ever. Made over 100.